Roman times, a soldier had to be cleansed by a sex worker before he was allowed back into society after witnessing great war, for example. He had to be cleansed and healed by these sex workers. And of course that looked like having this kind of intimate connection to them before kind of saying, okay, they're good to go.
Hey guys, Anchor North recently released its new podcast, Honest Discourse, where we host loving and authentic conversations that explore truth and exemplify meaningful interactions within our generation. This conversation features Alice, a sex worker, and Paula, a Christian. And in a time when people like to demonize other viewpoints and stick to their tribes, we can only commend Alice and Paula for choosing to have this discussion in a loving and personal way. What you're about to see is both of their responses to the statement, sex work is good work. Check it out.
Sex work is absolutely work, and I think to imply that any form of work has a morality to it, to kind of say that this job is better or worse than another job, I don't necessarily know if I prescribe a morality to work, but in terms of, is this an option for people? Can people enter this space and perform a service for society that has tangible benefits for others? I absolutely do believe so. I think that there is a space for it. When we look historically back to the dawn of time, Assyrian, Babylonian times, and go back to even the first set of legislation in existence, Hammurabi's Code, in terms of being verified and dated, there's actually language in there about not stigmatizing sex workers, which first tells us that sex workers have been around since Assyro-Babylonian times, like the cradle of society, but it also says that they had a space within society that was to be honored, to be cherished. In ancient Egypt, the sex workers worked out of these temple structures, and they were almost akin to priests and priestesses. In Roman times, a soldier had to be cleansed by a sex worker before he was allowed back into society after witnessing great war, for example. He had to be cleansed and healed by these sex workers, and of course that looked like having this kind of intimate connection to them before kind of saying, okay, they're good to go. So I think historically there's always been a place for sex workers. To say that that's not a part of society is inaccurate. There's a story, and we were talking about the New Testament versus the Old Testament, and there's a story of a sex worker within the Old Testament and how she came and she helped and she did all this great work, and then she's acknowledged even by God within the confines of the Old Testament as being, oh, she's this positive person. And then eventually the story goes on and she eventually settles down, she gets married, and then I think the story picks up with her son, and it just kind of continues on from there. But even in the Old Testament, there's still mention of sex workers as simply existing within society. So I would say I generally agree with the idea that sex work is good work, but I'm not necessarily sure that morality plays a part in the judgment of work. Like, oh, being a garbage disposal man is, quote, bad work. No, that's a job that has to happen in society. No matter what we do, someone's got to take out the trash, and someone's got to be on the dumpster truck and handle that material. And for someone to pass judgment and say that's a bad job, I don't necessarily know if that's the correct way to phrase it.
I think garbage men are heroes. I think, yeah, they deserve great honor for what they do.
Especially right now, they're essential workers. You figure they're interacting hands-on with things that have come into contact with people, potentially medical waste. I totally agree with you in the route that, yeah, they deserve a lot more respect, and especially now, they really are heroes. Anyone who's an essential worker, really, God.
Yep. So absolutely, you're right. Sex workers have existed for ever since the fall, after Adam and Eve sinned. Is sex work? I can only imagine. Absolutely. Now, as for what you're saying about like how can we say that some work is better than others, I agree with that for the most part. But I do think that there are some jobs that we can point to where we can say like this work fundamentally is opposed to God's design for us. And so a couple examples, like I really believe a drug dealer, a hitman, a doctor who kills unborn babies. And I would have to say, based on what God says about his design for sex, that a sex worker as well is working in direct opposition to what God has said is best for his creation.
Yeah, I can see within, like, if we take the religious morality as to the Bible and apply that as kind of the framework, by all means, it kind of gives you some structure as to what your personal beliefs are. But that's, I think, kind of the beauty of belief, in the sense that each person, if there's anything that everyone has a right to, everyone has the right to their own belief system. So for me to turn around and say, no, you're not allowed to have that belief, that's not correct. And for you to say, no, you can't do that job because I believe this, that's also not correct. And I think that's almost a part of the beauty of design, in the sense that every single person has their own lived experiences, and we are given the ability to communicate and share those experiences and learn from each other and kind of gain this wider perspective on life. Like, I I would not even know the first thing about being a medical doctor. I don't know. I'm very confused. I'd have no idea what I was doing. And so it's like, okay, I can trust in like medical science and what's being said by doctors, much in the same way that if you're a religious person, you're able to trust in the church. You're able to trust in what that belief is. And if you're not necessarily religious, I generally find that those who don't prescribe to a specific religion generally prescribe to some sort of personal morality that they use as their guiding compass based off of their lived experiences.
Yeah. And I absolutely agree with you. Like, I can't go out and say, like, you must stop doing that. But I will say that while we all have free will, absolutely, while we can believe whatever we want to, God has revealed himself. That is what is so incredible. And so I really believe that what he says about his word is true, that these are his very words that he has breathed out. And so I do think that because he has revealed himself, all of us will one day be held accountable to him for what we did with his revelation of himself.
All right, guys, let us know what you think of that by leaving your comments below. Also, if you liked that, you're going to want to check out the entire conversation by clicking the link in the description below. In it, you will see that both conversationalists are represented in an equal and authentic manner, and you will greatly benefit from listening to both Paula and Alice and diving into their stories and their perspectives. So let us know what you think of that. Listen to the full episode by clicking in the description below, and we'll see you in the next episode.